How do you measure a life? Do you measure it by how it started, or do you measure it by how it ended? We have spent the last 6 episodes following David the underdog, the hero, the man who gets knocked down and keeps getting up. But every hero needs a villain. And in David's story, that villain wasn't Goliath. It was King Saul. But here is the scary part. Saul didn't start as a villain. He started as the chosen one. He was humble. He was gifted. He was the hope of a nation. And yet, he ends his story alone, terrified, and impaled on his own sword on a cold mountain. Today, we are witnessing the end of an era. We are going to watch the bloody, tragic fall of the first king of Israel. And we're going to ask the hard question: how does a man with so much potential lose his way so completely? This is Bible Hero Saga. Let's get into it. We pick up right where we left off. The Philistines have gathered a massive army at Shunem. They are ready to wipe Israel off the map. Saul looks at this army, and for the first time in his career, he has no plan. He is paralyzed by fear. In the past, he had the prophet Samuel to guide him. He had David to fight for him. Now, Samuel is dead. David is exiled. Saul is desperate. He prays to God, but the text gives us a chilling detail. The Lord did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by prophets. Radio silence. So, what does Saul do? He breaks his own law. Years ago, Saul had banned all mediums and spiritists from Israel. It was a capital offense, but desperation makes hypocrites of us all. He disguises himself and sneaks behind enemy lines to find the witch of Endor. He demands she summon the spirit of the dead prophet Samuel. He is literally trying to hack the spiritual realm because he can't get a signal from God. And it works. Sort of. A spirit appears. But it's not the comfort Saul wanted. It's a judgment. The spirit tells Saul, "Why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has turned from you? Tomorrow, you and your sons will be with me." Saul collapses, face first on the ground. It's over. He walks out into the night, knowing he is a walking dead man. Let's pause here. There is a massive lesson in this moment about silence. Saul panicked because God stopped talking, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. You pray, you ask for direction, you look for a sign, and you get nothing. Just silence. Here is the mistake Saul made, and it's the mistake we make. He interpreted silence as abandonment. When God goes silent, it isn't always rejection. Usually, it's a test. It's a test of maturity. A teacher is always quiet during the test. If Saul had possessed any character, he would have repented. He would have gone into that battle trusting that God is God. But Saul didn't want a relationship with God. He wanted control. And when he couldn't control God, he turned to witchcraft. He turned to the dark side just to get an answer. Our first high-value lesson is when you hit a season of silence, don't try to kick down the door. Don't compromise your morals just to get a quick fix or a sense of control. Wait. The silence is where your character is actually built. The sun rises on Mount Gilboa. The prophecy comes true. The Philistine war machine hits the Israelite lines like a hammer. The Israelites break rank and run. It's not a battle, it's a massacre. And in the middle of the chaos, we see a tragedy within a tragedy. Jonathan, David's best friend, the man who should have been king, the man who had the faith to take on an entire garrison by himself. He is fighting alongside his father. The text is brutal in its brevity. The Philistines overtook Saul and his sons, and the Philistines struck down Jonathan. Jonathan died because of his father's wars. He died loyal to a man who didn't deserve his loyalty. Sometimes, Good men fall because they are standing next to bad leaders. Now the archers spot the king. An arrow pierces Saul. He is critically wounded. He can hear the Philistine chariots getting closer. He knows what they will do to him if they capture him alive. Torture, humiliation. He turns to his armor-bearer and says, "Draw your sword and thrust me through, lest these uncircumcised come and abuse me." But the armor-bearer is terrified. He can't kill the Lord's anointed. So Saul takes his own sword and falls on it. A few hours later, the Philistines find his body. They cut off his head, they strip his armor, they nail his body to the wall of a city called Beth-shan as a trophy. It is a gruesome, humiliating end to the man who was once described as head and shoulders above everyone else. Why did it end this way? Why did Saul die in shame while David rose to glory? It wasn't because David was perfect. We know David messed up. The difference was security. Saul suffered from what I call the Saul complex. He was the king, but he lived his entire life terrified of what other people thought of him. He didn't kill the Amalekites because he feared the people. He chased David for years because he was jealous of David's popularity. Even in his death, his last thought wasn't about God. Did you catch what he said? "Lest they come and abuse me." He was worried about his image right up until his last breath. Our second high-value lesson is insecurity is the greatest enemy of leadership. If you need people to praise you, to feel valuable, you will eventually destroy the people you're supposed to lead. David didn't care about his image. He danced in his underwear to worship God. Saul cared only about his image, and he died alone. 3 days later, David is back in Ziklag. A man runs into the camp claiming to have news from the battle. He brings David the crown and the bracelet of King Saul. This man, an Amalekite, thinks he hit the jackpot. He tells David, "I saw Saul kneeling on his spear. He asked me to kill him, so I did. And look, here is the crown. I brought it to you, my lord." The man is lying. We know Saul killed himself. But this guy thinks David hated Saul. Saul hunted David. If I tell David he killed his enemy, he's going to pay me. He miscalculated badly. David doesn't celebrate. He tears his clothes. He weeps. He asks the man, "How is it you were afraid not to put forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" And David orders the man to be executed on the spot. This is the final and perhaps most important lesson of David's fugitive years. For 10 years, David had a promise: "You will be king." For 10 years, Saul stood in the way. Now, a man hands him the crown. Ideally, David should be happy. The nightmare is over. But David understood a principle that is lost in our modern culture: honor. David refused to celebrate the death of a leader, even a bad one. He refused to take the crown by force or by trickery. He understood that if you have to cheat to get the position, you won't have the character to keep the position. The last high-value lesson: don't snatch the crown. Whether it's a promotion at work, a leadership role, or a relationship, if you have to destroy someone else to get it, it's not a blessing, it's a trap. David waited for God to give it to him. David takes the crown, but first, he takes a pen. He writes a funeral song for Saul and Jonathan. It's called the Song of the Bow. He commands all the men of Judah to learn it. He forces his people to honor the man who tried to kill him. He sings, "How have the mighty fallen." Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. David chose to remember Saul's best moments, not his worst. That is the mark of a true king. Saul is dead. Jonathan is dead. The throne is empty. The fugitive years are over. But the peace? The peace is just a dream. Because while David is mourning, Saul's general, Abner, is already making moves to putting Saul's remaining son on the throne. The Philistines are knocking on the door, and a civil war is about to tear Israel apart. David has the crown. Now he has to fight to keep it. Next time on Bible Hero Saga, we enter Season 2, the Civil War, brother against brother, general against general, and the bloody rise of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. I'll see you in the next one.